All right, we'll get started here in a minute. Couple minutes here. Give me a second. If you just jumped on, please give me a shout out. Tell me you're here. Tell me your name. Actually, I probably will see your name. So, give me 3 minutes and we'll get started. All right. Probably get this started a little bit early. Um, Trying something new today. I got one camera and two cameras, so we'll give it a shot, see how this goes. All right, we're gonna get rolling just a couple minutes early here, so I'll go ahead and take this down. If you're just now joining us, I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 o'clock from 7 to 7:30. I normally stream from, or two, I should say, YouTube and Facebook. But for some reason, the streaming service Restream that streams it to all that stuff is down. They just sent out a message saying that it's a known issue. So tonight we're just streaming to YouTube. So, but if you haven't subscribed, please do me a favor. If you're watching, if you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button, the notification bell, and give me a thumbs up if you like this. It does help the channel, so I appreciate it. All right, let's get started. My name is DeRosa, and I do a show called Expert Real Estate Coaching, and where we kind of tackle some of the stuff that we're going on in the real estate market today, mostly creative stuff. And what we've been talking about these last few weeks has been all geared towards the pandemic and how the market is shifting and changing. And normally I throw up a bunch of news articles, and I didn't today because there's a couple things I want to get to pretty quickly. I want to try to keep this to 30 minutes or less today. So I didn't want to take up some valuable time, but I wanted to kind of share a few things with you. One of the things that I think we need to be aware of as real estate investors is commercial. And if you're not keeping your eye on the commercial market, you really need to, and more so the retail commercial space. We have seen numerous articles on how what we call anchor stores are not able to make ends meet and not able to make their lease payments to the malls. For example, an anchor store might be a Dick's Sporting Good or a Macy's or a J.C. Penney's, where it's, when you walk into a mall, they've got these big corner stores they call them anchors. And in an anchor store, a lot of the smaller stores have their leases based on the anchors. And if the anchors go away, that opens the door for other smaller leases or leasing space to say, okay, wait a minute, you're losing your anchors, therefore, I either we can adjust my rent or not pay it or move out altogether. That might be an out to their lease, right? So I think one of the things that we need to be paying attention to is how this is affecting the retail space, because if these stores go out of business, people are going to go out of business. Now, right now, we're still over 42 million people unemployed, but the economy's surprisingly in pretty decent shape. But again, I'm going to say that's simply because people are still kind of holding their breath. People don't really think anything's going to happen because the banks haven't let the other shoe drop. So I think what you're going to see over the next 6 months to a year is you're going to see banks all of a sudden, because I've seen several articles as well, basically talk about how banks under the CARES Act, that they are required or encouraged to give, I think it was 180 days, either deferment or forbearance. Now, the difference between the two, forbearance means you still have to pay it back and you can spread it out over a period of months, right? Or there's a variation of that. But then there's a deferment, which basically says, okay, we're going to lift this up and we're going to defer it to the end, right? We're going to defer that to the very end, and no harm, no foul. Just pay us when you sell it or when you refinance, okay? A lot of government loans may be headed that way, but a lot of the private loans, they want their money, right? They need their books to look good. They need their shareholders they need their numbers to look good. So what I've seen a bunch of articles on now is the private companies, Banks of America, Wells Fargo, those types of banks, right, or those types of lenders, are now saying that some of them are going to want their money when this 3 months or 6 months is up. They want it all at one time. Okay, well, we don't know what that's going to mean, but if it means what they are implying, that means a lot of people are not going to be able to come up with that money. So that means there's going to be a lot of foreclosures, and more importantly, a lot of inventory that comes onto the market, which in turn makes your house a little bit harder to sell. Actually, a lot harder to sell. So whether you believe that or not, I think it's very prudent for people to understand how to sell houses quickly and not through a traditional way, right? So tonight, what I wanted to talk about is basically selling houses fast in what I would call a declining market, even though we are not declining right now per se. Still hot market, inventory is still low. Housing prices are starting to cool, even though the media is saying, oh, we're in a great market. Well, that's going to change, and they are always behind the curve. So, you've got to have your finger on the pulse, right? And one of the indicators is, for me, is I look, and you can go out this and you can do your own research, but you can look on Zillow and just pick the last 90 days and just look at the difference between red houses on Zillow and yellow houses. Look at the difference in what people are asking versus what's selling, the prices, and then look at the reds and click on them and see what's happening with that loan. How long has it been on the market? How many days on the market has it been, and what's the price, and if they've had any price cuts. And what you will find is houses are priced really, really high still, but they're not selling for that price. So as time goes on, houses are going to collect and our inventory is going to get much bigger. Well, when that happens, you have to ask yourself, do I just stop and have a hard time selling it, or do I look at ways to creatively sell and keep the inventory moving as well as making a lot of money? Well, I think you just need to learn how to sell creatively or sell on owner finance as well. So over the last several weeks, what I've been teaching you is how to buy on things like subject to, how to buy wraparound mortgage, things like that. So today I want to first, before we understand how to sell, or before we really start talking about how to sell, we first need to understand why a house doesn't sell. And I think there are 10 reasons why houses don't sell, or actually 9. So I'm going to tell you 9 reasons why houses don't sell. Let's talk about number 1. All right, number 1, price too high. What does that mean? When a house is priced too high, think about why a house won't sell. In general terms, there's only a few reasons why in most cases, houses don't sell, right? Quickly. Think about how a house sells quickly. It's in good shape, it's priced right, and you get lots of traffic, right? And we're going to cover those 3 things. So if it's priced right and it's in good condition, renovated well, or in good shape, and you get lots of traffic to it, the houses will sell regardless of the market you're in. Even in 2008, when we went through this whole thing in 2008, we were still selling houses for top dollar, and we were selling them pretty quickly because our houses were priced right and our houses were in great shape, and we knew how to drive traffic. So I want to tell you, for years now, and it's pretty much no different now. The percentages may have shifted slightly just because of the nature of our economy. But it used to be years ago, 20% of the population out there had what we call A credit. Okay, and I think that is still true. I still think 20% of the population has A credit, meaning they could go down to the bank, drop whatever they want, meaning they had a great credit score, and they had a reasonable down payment that they could get any loan they wanted. So these were what I would call the pickiest buyers there are. They're the ones that come in and demand everything to be perfect, and every single seller wants that buyer because they have cash, they can close, etc. Then the economy is made up of another, what I'll call 60% of people that are borderline. Now, those folks that are borderline are people that have maybe had bumps and bruises on their credit. Maybe they had a bankruptcy several years ago and they're coming out of the bankruptcy and it's no longer going to be on their credit. Maybe they got another year left. For whatever reason, maybe they just haven't saved enough money and their combination between their credit score and down payment isn't quite there, but they're working towards it. Okay, that makes up probably 60% of everybody else, right? But then you're left with the 20% that, quite honestly, will never get a loan. They're the proverbial renters that maybe they have child support, big IRS liens, whatever reason, they just don't pay their bills, so their credit's really crappy, or they have stuff on their credit that just will not allow them ever to get a loan, right? Those are renters. And we need everyone in each of those, what I call segments, right? But in a market like we've had in the seller's market where we just came out of, it is a little different now. That market, we still had the 20% and we still had the 60%, but more of the 60% were able to get the loan. So it may have been 30% and 50%, right? But we're transitioning back into that normal split. So being priced too high will make or force a house to sit. And you'll be able to see that on Zillow right now. You go on Zillow and you look at the last 90 days. And the key is to pull up 90 days. Don't go back 120 days. Don't go back, 6 months. Do 90 days. Because that's going to give you a lot of what's selling recently and what's on the market now, right? what's hot, what is actually happening in today's market. And you're going to see a lot of the reds, those are the ones for sale, are going to have a higher price tag. And then the yellows are going to be sell for much less. Now, I've kind of proven that almost every day I look at it. And it's pretty much true. If you've tried that and you're watching at home, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your comments. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. But pricing a house too high is going to make it sit, right? The second reason houses don't sell is a bad location. Now, we've all heard location, 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 location. Well, in our real estate, in our world, it's less about location and more about price when we go to buy. But when we go to sell, there is a certain degree of location. People like to buy in good school districts. People like to buy close to, amenities, malls, different things like that, entertainment, restaurants. So if you're in a bad location, you're in a war zone, it's going to hamper the sell. Number 3 is homes need repair. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I see is either a home's not priced right or it needs repair. Those are the 2 big ones that the reason a house doesn't sell. You can take bad location or a bad neighborhood and a house will still sell because you've got lots of people in that neighborhood that really want to live there. Okay? But you have to ask yourself, you have to understand when you go to sell, who's your customer? So if you're not paying attention to what I call the demographics of the area, what I mean by that is demographics meaning a neighborhood that is a higher degree of rental versus owner. So you can go on to apps like SiteWise, for example, and put in like a half a square mile or something like that, and it will tell you the demographics. It's going to tell you like it has, well, you know what? I can probably, let me see if I can even show you. I may need my glasses for this. But there's different apps that you can use, and SiteWise is one of them. And if you look at SiteWise, and I'll put my iPad up here. So SiteWise is the one. Now this is, keep one thing in mind when you're doing this. This is old data based on U.S. Census. Now the new U.S. Census data is coming out, but it gives you an idea of these neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods change, but they're not super fast to change. So for example, if I went into SiteWise and I picked an area, let's say in Atlanta, and I did a profile of that, and I went down here and I said, okay, give me a category, and I want the housing category. Now this may or may not be hard for you to see, but if you can see this, let me see, maybe I can make that smaller for you to see. But you will see the way this is broken down. The way this is broken down is the top half of this is occupied, and then you have vacant down below. Well, let's say in this particular case, if you look all the way to the right, this particular address, it says 81 within, I think it was a half a mile, 81% of all the properties, so 8 out of 10, have someone in it. So they're occupied. So that means it's a 20% vacancy, right? Or if you look down a little further, 19%. Well, no. So almost a 20% vacant. So there's 2 out of every 10 houses and there's nobody in, right? Then you can say, okay, if you scroll down a little further, you have 30% of the population have a mortgage. And then keep going. 5% own it free and clear. So not a lot of people pay off their houses there. And then you go down even further and you say 46, almost half of the people that live there, of the 81%, almost half are renters. So if you take 46% plus the 20% that are vacant, so you're looking at 50, 60, 65%. 65, almost 7 houses out of every 10 either A, have a renter in them, or it's vacant. So when you're buying, or when you turn around and sell these things that you buy, location is important from that respect, because if I go back here, and let's just say I go and I say, give me an area that, let's look at this area and say, let's take a look at these numbers now. And I know it may be harder to see this, so I apologize, but bear with me. If you look, the amount of owner occupied in this area is 95%. 68% have a mortgage, 6% own it free and clear, and only 20% are renters. So this particular area is more of a buy, fix, and flip. And if you look at the correlation between those two, when you look at the demographics, the school districts in this particular one versus the other one are going to be higher ranked, because that's just a natural way that works, right? So people want to put their kids in much better education. When they value that, prices go up, people tend to stay there, and versus. But if you look at the area that we went to before, who is your customer? Your customer is someone that maybe is someone that has family members that live in that area, grew up in that area, but also your customer might be an investor. So if you're going to buy this house, your customer will be typically someone who wants to buy and hold that property and rent it out. Okay, so when you price it accordingly, when you price it, you have to price it accordingly. So that's just one of the demographics that we kind of use. Let me go back to my presentation. So home needing, so that's bad location, but home needing repairs. That's number 3. Number 4 is fierce competition, and I'm going to talk about number 5, market conditions. We're going to lump those together, because I do want to kind of make sure I get this thing out of here in a timely manner. Fierce competition. What do I mean by fierce competition? Well, when you're in a fierce competition, that could mean the difference between a buyer's market versus a seller's market, or a bidding war. Fierce competition when you go to sell is, if you have a rehab here and I have a rehab here, who has the better rehab? All right, so if I go into a neighborhood and I see a bunch of houses for sale, in order for me to sell my house faster, and not even for more money, but faster, I have to make sure that I compete with my fellow sellers. So how do I do that? I do it by price, and I do it by making my house better looking at a much, or not even a much, just at a little bit cheaper price. That's how you sell houses fast, even in a down economy. You rehab better than you've ever done before, better than your competition, and then you price it below. So what does that mean to you? That means that you have to get good at negotiating, which goes back to several of the videos that I've been talking about for the last month and a half. Right? So look at the older videos that we've done. So houses, depending on the type of market we're in, whether a buyer's market or seller's market, if we're in a buyer's market, houses sell pretty fast and they sell for top dollar. But if you're in a seller's market like we're transitioning into, houses tend to sit. But if you understand how to sell creatively, you can get through that making a lot more money. And the number 6, the reason, poor marketing. If you're not a marketer, okay, sticking a sign in the front yard that says for sale by owner isn't necessarily going to help you sell your house. Okay, especially if we're in a buyer's market. So you got to learn how to market this thing. You got to become a marketer for your house. If you've ever seen houses that have these for sale by owner signs that are old and tattered, it's because all the homeowner does is sticks a sign in, puts a flyer on there, a flyer box for all their flyers, and then expects people to come knock at their door. That's not how it works. So using a realtor in a case like that could be beneficial to you because it opens yourselves up to every single buyer, all different types of buyers. And this is where someone like, if you're going to sell on owner finance, using a service like a flat fee service would come into play. So you pay one fee, you don't have to pay the selling side, meaning your agent. You pay that one small fee. But then if an agent brings you a buyer, yeah, I'll pay you that. But otherwise, I'm keeping that money. If I can find a buyer, I'll keep it. If you find me a buyer, yeah, I'm willing to pay that 3% or whatever percentage you want. That's how you're going to sell in a market that we're coming into. Number 7, a bad agent. Another reason a house doesn't sell is you got a crappy agent. Your agent doesn't know what they're doing, or they may know what they're doing, but what they don't do is they have this really foul follow-up. Man, that's a hard thing to say. They have very poor follow-up. I sold a house one time years ago when I was moving from Michigan, Detroit down to here. And I got recommended this agent who had been she was ancient, right? And she had been in the real estate game for a very long time, and everyone spoke highly of her. And I sat down with her, and do you ever get this feeling when you sit down and you meet someone, you just don't have a good feeling about it? Well, I did. I used her, and it was a horrible experience because all she did was list it on the multiple listing, and then she did no follow-up with anybody that went by and looked at it. She didn't make any phone calls. She didn't do anything. She didn't give me any advice or anything on how to sell my house. Fortunately, my company helped me, and we were able to get it sold, but she was zero help. So a bad agent is going to keep you from selling, right? If an agent tells you that you've got too much stuff in your house, declutter it, guess what? Listen to them. If they say, look, this avocado green wallpaper needs to go, guess what? Listen to them. They sell houses every day for a living. Listen to what they tell you, okay? But if your agent says nothing to you and gives you no help, that could be an indication that they're a bad agent. So get yourself a new agent, right? Number 8, limited ability to show. A lot of you have renters or someone in there, and you're going to go, okay, well, I'll list it while my tenant or while somebody's in here, hoping to get somebody else to come in afterwards so that I don't have any holding costs. Well, that's the absolute worst idea you can do. Let me do you a favor and give you some advice. When you go to list a home and you want to sell it, the easiest way to sell a home is when it's open and vacant, right? People, you don't have to worry about having dishes all over, the clothes all over the place, cluttered. It's much easier to sell, and it will sell faster. Number 9, and the last one, incurable defects. Now, when you look at a house and you go, okay, it's got incurable defects, what does that mean? Well, that means you're next to a prison, okay? Or you're next to a cemetery, maybe. Well, maybe the people that buy it, maybe they like the quiet neighbors. But depending on the you can't cure that. There's nothing you can do. You can't get it up and move it away. You can't move a prison. You can't move a construction site behind you, or a pig farm, or a big erector like a tower in your backyard, or a sewage plant, or a railroad track, or things like that. Those are incurable defects. A house with no closets or very small closets. Those are incurable to a certain degree unless you want to add on and expand, right? So there's certain things that when you look at a house, for example, an incurable defect, depending on what you buy it for, could be the facade of the house, what it looks like. If it looks like a piece of crap from the front and you don't have a lot of money to spend on this, your rehab budget, because what you're paying for it is a little bit too much, and you can't change the facade, there's only so much you can do. Okay, if that house, when you pull up, even if you clean it up, if that house doesn't make you want to get out of the car and go inside, you could have gold plated toilets in that house. But if you can't get your buyer out of the car, it's irrelevant. So the outside has to have a good appeal to it. So your job, to be honest with you, is to eliminate as many of these reasons to sell as possible. You may not be able to get rid of all of them, but if you can eliminate a lot of these, the percentage of selling your house, or the ability to sell your house fast, goes up considerably. Okay? Now, towards the end here, there's 3 things that sell houses, in my opinion. One is you buy it right. Okay, what I mean by buying it right, there's 2 ways we buy right, and we'll get into this more in other videos, but we're not going to get into this. My next video will be, how do I buy right? What does that mean? So if you're interested, let's, come join me on Thursday and we'll talk about how do we buy right, right? How do you buy right? Well, that means understanding what houses are selling for, anticipating the market. So if you know right now that the market is, by your observation, is declining a bit, you have to kind of have some foresight as to where do you think this economy is going to go. So you have to buy it accordingly, right? When I talk to the people that I'm my colleagues right now, I'm getting the same thing that everybody's saying. They're looking for steals, not deals, right? Before we were looking for deals. Now we're looking for steals. Okay, so that speaks volumes to me. It's like, okay, prices are going to come down, and people are going to have to negotiate better to get better deals, right? So in the next 6 months to a year, it's going to be much easier to buy, but it's going to be much more difficult to sell. So your goal is to buy right. That means negotiate better, understanding your numbers, understanding what you can pay and what you can't, and having a little foresight into where the market is going to go and potentially any kind of pitfalls. Okay? Don't overprice or don't overpay. And don't overprice your home. This is the biggest mistake I see most people make when you go to sell. They rehab it to the nines. Hey, Muhammad. Muhammad said hello to everybody. So, when you go to sell, and this is the way it's been for several years, you can literally push the limit on that because the market is hot. Well, when the market is not hot, you cannot push the limit. So I'm going to give you a secret. In order to sell houses lightning fast in even a down economy, the key to this is your house has to be the nicest in your circle, in your area where people are looking, and it has to be priced just below the highest priced house, so you're not overpriced. So the mental process is, when an agent drives their customer or client around and they look at 10 houses, they want, whether yours is the first, in the middle, or the last, you want them to look at the house, go, wow, I love it, and then look at the price and go, wow, that house is better than everybody else's, and it's a couple thousand. Okay, had a little glitch there. But the second thing is knowing your competition when you buy it right. So you don't want to overprice it, and you want to know what other people, so you don't over rehab a house, right? You don't want to over rehab the house. So how do you not over rehab a house, especially in a down economy or when you're trying to watch your pennies? You go visit all the other competition that you have. And if you're, for example, if you go and you see your competition has hardwoods in their house, guess what? You need to put hardwoods. If you see they have vinyl, then you might be able to get away with more inexpensive laminate or something a little better than vinyl and a lot cheaper than hardwoods, right? Somewhere in the middle. So you want to look at your competition and go just a tad above them so that you can price it just a tad below them. And that's going to make your house sell fast. Number two is completely renovating the house. People like new stuff. Throwing lipstick on a pig is not necessarily going to work. All right. It might work in some cases, but generally speaking, throwing lipstick on a pig is not going to cut it. Um, so people want new stuff. They want to be able to come in, put their lazy boy down, and hang their TV, plug their refrigerator in, grab a beer, go watch TV. That's what they want. They don't want to come in and do house projects. And if they do, they want that off the price of the home. That's a handyman special. They're buying a house knowing that, hey, if I have to do work, I want it cheaper. Okay? So they want it maintenance free. And then the third reason is traffic. The third reason a house sells quickly is because you can drive traffic to it. So there's two ways to drive traffic to every house. You can put it out there and you can list it on multiple listing. You can get an agent to put it on a multiple listing. You can use a flat fee service. Many different ways to do that, right? Depending on how you want to cut prices. But you really want your house on the multiple listing because that's a magic box. And people who have money that could buy your house and pay cash go to a realtor, right? So they want to make sure, they're going to go there first. So if you think that, hey, I'm going to save money by listing it for sale by owner, guess what? You're really not going to save yourself money. It's going to cost you money in the end. Okay? And if you don't have enough room in there because you owe too much, then you need to think about selling on owner finance some way or some form, right? So there's ways around all that. Okay. However, the more traffic you have, the faster this will sell. But if you don't take care of 1 and 2, meaning you don't buy it right and you don't rehab it correctly, all the traffic in the world isn't going to help you. It's just going to turn people over. You're going to get a lot of traffic, but no offers. So you got to make sure you price it right. You got to make sure you buy it right. You got to make sure you renovate it correctly. And then you got to make sure you drive traffic. So the way we drive traffic to that is you're going to do it on a multiple listing. You're going to list it out there. Even if you do a flat fee, it doesn't cost you much. You're still going to try to get the people who can get the loans to look at it. And you're also going to market it on the owner finance world in Craigslist, Zillow for sale by owners, Facebook Marketplace, all the different places that you would do on an owner finance. Because remember, I told you there's 20% A buyers, 60% B buyers, 20% C buyers. Well, what we want is the A and the B buyers fighting over this house. That's what we want. We want, instead of having only 20% traffic with the A buyers, just listing it alone, we want 80% of the people looking at it. And you might be surprised that if you do some owner finance on it, someone may come to you and say, hey, I got 40 grand to put down. Well, 40 grand goes a long way on owner finance. And you still potentially get income off of that property because you become the bank. So, in a recap, if you have any questions, by all means, please put that out there. But if you have, as we recap, there's 9 reasons that houses don't sell. Your job, and we'll go back. Let me see if I can go back and put those 9 up there. So these are the 9 ways to sell. This is what we talked about. Price it too high. bad location, home needs repairs, fierce competition, marketing conditions such as a buyer's market versus a seller's market, poor marketing, bad agent, limited ability to show, or incurable defects. Those are the 9 reasons a house won't sell. So your job is to make sure that you minimize buying a house with any of those issues, right? Then make sure that you rehab it correctly, price it right, and then ultimately drive as much traffic to it as you possibly can. So that recaps for tonight. I don't see many questions right now, but I will answer any questions that people put in the comments. So please go ahead and put comments in. I do read every comment. If you are just now joining us for the first time, please go and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment, because I love to read the comments. If you're interested in any kind of educational material, and you want some good educational materials, home study courses, you can check us out at htrei.com. Again, that's htrei.com, stands for hightechrealestateinvesting.com. So htrei.com. Go check us out there. We've got lots of courses. We've got everything from wholesaling, subject to owner finance, creative deal structuring, how to be a private lender or borrower, I should say, rehabbing, etc. There's 19 different courses over there, so go and check them out. All right. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I think we had some technical issues here with some of the services that I normally use, but hopefully that's not the case, but I'll have to go back to it later and look at it. If not, I'll redo this session and we can redo it and do a do-over. But until Thursday, remember, check us out on every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock. We like to go from 7 to 7:30-ish. This one's a little bit longer. But please check us out at youtube.com/Don DeRosa 2. DONDEROSA, the number 2.com. Or I'm sorry, youtube.com/Don DeRosa 2. All right, until Thursday, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening, and I'll see you then. Stay safe.